right? The beliefs that you have. There could be just the belief about mum, the belief about dad, the belief about emotion. They're all blockages to you experiencing this emotion.
And is it always linked with your parents, or could it come from outside sources like school?
Yeah,
like, I think
from the
that's
age
where
of
my
4 or
issues
something,
started,
where you're usually going to school. So
Yeah, and that kind of, because I had a pretty good upbringing, but it was school, and dealing with other kids and teachers and that sort of thing that.
Yep. Can I just point out though that you have a block towards dealing with childhood emotion relating to your parents, and you've just stated what it is.
Okay.
What is it?
I'd have to think about that.
Well, you just said the words. I had.
Okay.
A pretty
good upbringing.
Good upbringing, right? This is one of the major blocking emotions. Right. Is that mum sitting right next to you?
Oh, yeah. I can just imagine what this is doing to you.
Can you see that there's automatically a strong reason for you to say that?
And she says the same about hers.
Exactly, exactly. Now we've got to stop judging our upbringing. We've just got to stop judging it. What we've got to do is start stating the truth about it. While mum and dad might have tried the best that they could try at the time, and while they, might have done what they felt was right at the time, the majority of mums and dads on this planet have no understanding about causal emotion, no understanding about blocking emotion, no understanding about all of these things that they created in us, no understanding about free will. Many of them believe they love, but they've got no understanding about love, because every time they tried to control us as a child, they broke the law of love. So we've got to come face to face with the truth that actually, while my mum might feel that I had a pretty good upbringing, there were lots of emotions that were created in me as a result of the breaking of the laws of love.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And the key is to not judge them for that, but to feel what that created in you.
Yeah, so for example, when, something happened at school and I got angry about that and I took it out on them, which happened, was that their law of attraction?
Yes.
Even though that was my thing?
That was their law of attraction.
At school?
Yep. So then if they punished you for that, can you see already they're punishing you for their own law of attraction? Straight away so that's an unloving thing to do. Okay. So can you see that even though we often feel like, mum and dad did well, and by the way, many of you feel that, and that's one of the reasons why you're not feeling many of your emotions, is because we don't focus on the truth as God sees it with regard to it. So every time my parents broke the law of free will, they did not love me. From God's perspective, that is the truth. So every time they manipulated or controlled me or did something to me to control my will, they were not loving to me. And I must categorise that, because we'll talk about free will at another time, but as long as their own free will wasn't being harmed in the process. So in other words, if I harm your free will, if I exercise my own free will, and in the process of exercising my own free will harm yours, now I'm being unloving in the exercise of my free will. Now, your parents did that to you many times, right? And if Mum's honest, she will see the times that's happened many times. Now, that straight away means that I had a pretty good upbringing is really just, I had a pretty good upbringing in comparison to other people. Does that make sense? That's really what we're saying. But in comparison to how God would have liked you to be brought up, how was it? Because that's in the end what the truth will be. The truth is how God would have brought you up if God was sitting here next to you and being your mum. Right. That's the truth of what we need to feel emotionally.
Okay, thanks.
And what did Mum say? Sorry.
Oh. Oh, God.
Oh, God.
It's okay. She just mentioned some books.
Yeah. The key with a lot of things is that as a parent, we often want our child to work their way through emotions without blaming us, right? And the truth is that it's going to be very difficult for our child to do that, because in the end, their environment, which, by the way, as a parent, we created, is obviously been a large factor in their emotional process and their emotional growth, and therefore in the emotional errors and blockages that are within them. So at some point, we are actually, as parents, to blame for the choices that we made. From a true perspective, we are the ones responsible for the creation of many of our children's damaged emotions. All right? And we need, at some state as a parent, to acknowledge that. By the way, of course, the same applies to myself and my own parents, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So in other words, my own parents at some point are going to need to, at some point in the future, if they want to be at one with God, they're going to need to acknowledge that they were the creator of many of my emotional injuries that I've had to release, and many of my situations that are now within me that I'm trying to get rid of. When we tell ourselves that we had a good upbringing, that is one of the major blockages to experiencing emotion.
Okay.
Because what we're trying to do, and this is the dynamic that often happens, here's me as the child, right? Here's my mum, right? Often the person that we want love from is that person, right? Mm. We want love from mum. So our desire is to have love from mum. So what happens then, when I start feeling the truth as God sees it, mum starts feeling like that's an error, mm-hmm. right? Now, when mum feels that, what's she going to project back at you?
Yeah, frustration.
Don't do that, don't go there, can you see straight away?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm hooked into wanting love from mum, and she's giving me disapproval, can you see straight away that I'm not going to want to face God's truth? Yeah. And this is one of the major blockages that we have on the planet to actually changing the next generation's emotions.
Okay.
Yep. So if you say that to yourself at any time, I had a pretty good upbringing, there's little point to even making that statement, right? Because all you're doing, number one, is comparing yourself with other people's upbringing. You're trying to make yourself better about some things that weren't so good when you were growing up. And there are emotions in you that are affecting your law of attraction that somebody created and it wasn't you. Mm-hmm. So who did? If it wasn't you, then yes, it can be people at school and so forth, but the highest likelihood in every case is that it's the family environment. And
at what point does it start becoming your law of attraction? Because you mentioned that, the children...
Your responsibility or your law of attraction?
Yeah, well, things that happen to a child are the parent's law of attraction. Am I following?
No. What the child does with the parent is the parent's law of attraction.
Oh, okay. Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so the child has a law of attraction too?
Of its own, of course.
Yeah.
Any good emotions in the child, or when I say love-based or truth-based emotions in the child, or any error-based emotions in the child, create its law of attraction, yes. Mm-hmm. But where did those love-based and error-based emotions come from?
The family.
From the family environment before they even went to school, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, there has to be something going on with the parents, and that's where we need to start seeing the relationship. The truth is that your law of attraction begins the moment you start exercising free will, which is the moment you are conceived. But of course, the avalanche of emotion that's coming into you at that point is mostly from your parents,
or the mother,
and in particular your mum during the first 9 months of gestation. So obviously that's going to have a huge effect on your law of attraction that results after that. Mm-hmm. So this is why it's so powerful for a parent. If they can see what happened to their child, particularly when the child was young, but also as the child is now an adult, if they can see what happened to the child and happening to the child right now as their own law of attraction, it goes a great deal to actually working their way through both the parents and the children's emotion.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.